Welcome to Nothing Without Us, stories and discussions of meaningful inclusion. This is part 2 of the interview with Andrea Rodrigues and Aimee Fernandez from Looking Upwards.
You did ask about barriers, and the one barrier that I've identified is finding the people who need the service. So, in the different locations in Rhode Island, figuring out how to get to that population of individuals who need the service. So.
Right. I think that there are more people asking about it now, though. I think that now they're starting to feel comfortable that you're really there and that you're really doing this. I've heard that more people are talking about it and saying what a good idea it is. So I think that's going to open up those opportunities. I think there's a significant need. So I think that's going to may have been a challenge, but I think it's going to be really much more. I think a bigger problem, and I think that you might be running into this is the fact that this state has such poor transportation. And transportation, because a lot of people who need PCAs need them first thing in the morning, and you can't always get there by bus.
Right.
And it has been a barrier that we've faced since cohort 1, and it hasn't been identified. A solution hasn't been identified for that just yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, I'm not confident our so-called transit authority is going to make that any easier.
I just wanted to, I think I should just explain a little bit about how the program actually looks, the training.
That would be good.
Yeah, so it's broken up into 10 weeks, and there's 2 days per week that the participants come in. On day 1, it's a classroom type setting where they have interactive skills building lessons. And then on day 2, there's a second instructor that comes into the class. So there's 2 instructors, and we do hands-on activities to implement those skills that we learned the day before. So it's been successful too for them to actually practice the skills.
Right. They also then do an internship at the end, right?
Yes, and then they would go into a 2-week internship following the end of the program.
Okay. So is there anything else I think we could talk about this. I could talk about it for hours. So, and I think that what we're going to do is do another show on it in the not too distant future, where you can bring in a consumer and a new employer, and let's see how they feel about that. Have you done anything about evaluations, evaluating the impact of the program on the consumers and on the employers, both from a satisfaction point of view or an economic point of view? How is this affecting people? For some people, having the PCA means they can work, and so now you've got 2 people working who weren't working before, and so there is an economic impact that way. Have you done any evaluation on that yet?
Not in regard to the economic impact that it's had on the participants and their employers. We have focused a lot on the understanding and appreciation of the course itself. Each student is required to present an end of training presentation that shows everything it is that they learned, and they also have the opportunity to express their dissatisfaction and the satisfaction of the program, and we're rated quite high. Nobody's ever had a complaint to even share, which is really, really cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and the overall goal in the future is hopeful that there will be a pool of qualified PCAs who are well trained and can be trained also by an employer, and then a pool of employers. So if an employer needs a PCA, if they're looking for a PCA, there'll be a PCA that I can hopefully connect them with. So hopefully that will be where it ends up.
It would also be useful to have a few people that are not working full time but are available now and again to fill in too. Because that becomes an issue when somebody doesn't show up.
Having like
so-
a backup PCA, absolutely.
yeah, backups are, and the tricky part about a backup is that, people need to be able to work. So if there's a pool of them where they can pick up several, potential backup positions over time, that would be useful. So, yeah.
Right now, we focused a lot of our attention on going where there's most need. So we
Yeah.
started off the training program here not here in Portsmouth, because we're not in Portsmouth right now,
Yeah.
but in Portsmouth, where our home base location is located. And we did 2 cohorts there before we moved over to the Woonsocket area, where we found a significant need for employment and for PCA placements. So right now, we're on our 2nd cohort in Woonsocket. It looks as though we'll be maintaining our location in the Woonsocket area for a little while, but it's been difficult to find matches for the folks, or the folks in need of PCAs who we identified during the 1st and 2nd cohort,
Right.
because now we're in the Woonsocket area. So this last cohort, we had one of our participants finish and was hired in one of our Portsmouth connection locations, and
Okay.
it only lasted a short period of time because the distance was a barrier.
Yeah.
So transportation and time was definitely an issue for that participant.
Right. Yeah, that is a big problem. I don't know, I think they ought to start listening to people with disabilities and planning that too.
Yeah.
So,
And a program that provides the training that individuals need, so that they can also, have some skills when they're entering. And we did talk about the job development piece of it, because when we're doing the internship, it's job development and then hopeful job placement. In an average year, a job developer usually only places about 3 individuals in jobs, and since the PCA program has had its first year, we've already placed 8.
that's-
So it is a significant increase in job placement. So
that's really great, yeah. So is there anything else you want to add before we close, either, about the program or about looking upwards or,
No, I don't. Nothing specific.
unless you
None at this
unless I
time,
know anything.
okay. Well, I thank you so much for coming, Andrea and Aimee. I'm glad you were able to give our listeners this opportunity to see a different view of disability. Because in this program, people with disabilities are employed in meaningful work, making them valuable contributions, using their own skills and talents that nobody else sees until you bring it out. And I think that's really an important thing. They're contributing members of society. At the same time, other people with disabilities are employers who are hiring, members of the first group of people. So, that sounds like a lot like meaningful inclusion to me.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about looking upwards that drew me here after being employed in Massachusetts for 25 years was their philosophy of looking for an individual's ability rather than their disability.
Right.
So we don't even talk about diagnoses or anything. We're just looking for an individual's ability and matching their job with that ability, and
Right.
that's been really impactful for me.
Right,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's one of the things that's always made me like that organization very much. I've always thought highly of it. So I look forward to talking with you again in the near future, okay?
Yes.
So I'm Annette Bourbonier from Nothing Without Us. Thank you for listening, and please tune in again. We are in the process of lining up several other guests when we will talk about how important it is to have individuals with disabilities included in policy making in other areas in a more meaningful way. Please tell your friends about this podcast, which will be available on all your favorite podcast outlets. Visit our website on patreon.com, where you can also find all our episodes. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Threads, and Instagram. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Until my next Nothing Without Us, this is Annette Bourbonier.